Judicial staff workers strike, delayed justice, the Nigerian Bar Association, politics, and more. That's our focus on this week's episode of Law Weekly. The former president, Commonwealth Lawyers Association, Mrs. Boma Ozobia, is my guest on this episode of the program. She also shares her thoughts on how to make the Nigerian Bar Association more vibrant and responsive to national issues. Welcome to Law Weekly on Channels Television. I am Shola Shoyeli. Let's begin with a quick recap of some of the top legal stories of last week.
We begin with the report that judgment is set to be delivered Thursday in the trial of South African athlete Oscar Pistorius. The trial, which has captivated the world and held people glued to their television sets, is coming to an end after almost 6.5 months and 19 months after Oscar Pistorius shot and killed his girlfriend, River Steenkamp. In the early hours of Valentine's Day in 2013, Pistorius shot and killed his model girlfriend, Steenkamp, at his home. Pistorius claims that it was an accident, and he said that he thought his home was being burgled, which caused him to fire 4 shots at the locked bathroom door. The shot hit Steenkamp, who was on the other side of the locked door. Lead prosecutor Gerard Nell has accused Pistorius of lying. It will, however, all boil down to the decision of Judge Thokozile Matilda Masipa. In the South African legal system, like the Nigerian system, trials are strictly decided by judges, unlike the American system, where the fate of the one being tried is in the hands of the jury. The 66-year-old judge was born and raised with many siblings in a 2-room house in Soweto, the historic township where the struggle against apartheid turned violent, and to where Nelson Mandela returned when he walked free from prison in 1990. She is the eldest of 10 children, of whom only 3 remain. 5 died in childhood, and another brother was stabbed to death in his 20s. As a former crime reporter before turning judge, she wrote about anti-apartheid protest and the victims of police brutality, especially women. In 1998, she became only the second black woman judge appointed to the High Court. Since she was put in charge of this case, 2 of her previous rulings have been near constantly discussed. One is her exploitation of a narrow constitutional avenue to hand a 252-year sentence to a serial rapist, noting in her judgment that the victims had been attacked in the sanctity of their homes where they thought they were safe. The other was the life sentence given to a police officer who shot his estranged wife as they argued over their divorce settlement. These cases have been deployed many times over in the past 6 months to paint a picture of a judge especially impassioned by crimes against women. Our interpretation of the Oscar case will therefore be crucial, but there is nothing concrete to suggest that her defense of women trumps what those who know her say is her principal interest, fairness and justice. In those 2 other cases, the facts were beyond doubt. This present one is more complex. It's been said that there is a range of possible outcomes. Aside from the charge of premeditated murder that Pistorius is currently facing, there is also a possibility that it could escape a 25 to life sentence jail term. There is also a chance that it can get a shorter sentence for culpable homicide. Staying on the foreign scene, prosecutors at the International Criminal Court have asked for the case against Kenyan President Uhuru Kenyatta to be adjourned indefinitely. ICC Chief Prosecutor Fatu Bensouda said he still did not have enough evidence to proceed with the trial, which was due to resume next month. President Kenyatta is charged with crimes against humanity after some 1,200 people were killed and 600,000 driven from their homes. He denies organizing ethnic massacres after the 2007 election. Africa's leaders have lobbied for the case to be dropped, accusing the ICC of only investigating alleged atrocities in Africa. The prosecutor has, however, accused Kenyatta's government of failing to fulfill its obligation to the court in supplying information she has requested. Back here in Nigeria, the Hope Democratic Party has asked a federal high court in Abuja to stop the Transformation Ambassadors of Nigeria (TAN) from further holding rallies for President Goodluck Jonathan's second-term bid. The party, through its suit filed last week Wednesday, argued that the rallies being organized by TAN across the nation were encouraging unwholesome violation of the provisions of the Constitution in Section 221, which violates canvassing for vote and holding political rallies for candidates. They also alleged that the rallies constitute undue wastage of the taxpayers' fund for development. The suit is, however, yet to be assigned to a judge. And we round off with the report that judicial workers under the aegis of the Judiciary Staff Union of Nigeria, JUSUN, are threatening to resume their suspended strike on October 2. JUSUN gave the threat after a meeting of the National Executive Council of the Union last weekend with a condemnation of the failure of the stakeholders, including the Accountant General of the Federation and others, to respect the MOU signed with the union. The union had on July 11 embarked on a nationwide strike following the failure of the various state governments to comply with the judgment of the Federal High Court Abuja granting financial autonomy to the judiciary. The Accountant General of the Federation is by the judgment expected to deduct the money accruable to the various state judiciaries directly from the federal allocations of various state governments.
Welcome back. A cross-border solicitor, an advocate, a commercial and ADR specialist, those are just a few words that best describes my guest, Mrs. Boma Ozobia. She's held so many titles and won so many laurels that when the opportunity to sit and chat with her presented itself, I grabbed at it. In this interview, I got her to share from my experience of other jurisdictions tips on how our judiciary and the Nigerian bar can better respond to some of the issues that constantly afflict it. I want us to start with the issues in the news. The courts in the country have been on vacation for a while now, with skeletal services in place for urgent cases. But before the courts went on their vacation, there was an industrial action embarked upon by judiciary staff workers to press on their demands for better financial autonomy. Now, the judiciary workers have suspended that strike, and they said that that suspension was only temporary to allow for negotiations and for their demands to be met. As we speak right now, the workers in Ondo State Judiciary have shut down the courts again. They say that magistrates are taking over the administrative functions of the judiciary workers. Have you been able to place your hand on or identify why we keep having these recurring issues of strikes and what we can do differently?
Well, first things first, you don't go into an agreement and you do not then keep your side of the bargain. From what I'm seeing being reported, it is clear that, yes, an agreement was reached and one side has not performed, which is why they're going back to effectively the drawing board and returning to their strike action. So you've got to be sure that you can meet your obligations before you actually sign up to it. Because there's really no point signing up to it if you can't. You're just postponing the evil day. That's number one. But there's an underlying and really significant structural problem that has to be fixed. And until we fix that, we cannot have the justice system that the Nigerian citizen deserves. And that is the chronic lack of funding, the underfunding of the judiciary.
Because it's something that the CJN also alluded to and it keeps recurring.
Look at the track. We have the judiciary and that arm of government is being funded below inflation year on year. To begin with, they had insufficient funds. And then you're not even keeping up with inflation. So each year you're giving them less money than the year before, in comparison to the legislative arm or the executive arm. I mean, and this really is the arm that is the most crucial of the three arms of government, because the justice system underpins our civilized society and is the buffer that protects the right of every citizen of Nigeria, from the poorest man on the street to the president of the country. And when you undermine that, you undermine the very fabric of our civilization. So that has to be dealt with. The judiciary has to be properly funded.